Welcome to The Old Man of the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, presented by Cash App and brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 95, Kevin Love. Before we get to Kevin and some other stuff we want to talk about, Tommy, we have an announcement. It went out on social media today. We are doing a live show in Boston on February 9th at the Crystal Ballroom. It is with Marcus Smart. We're really excited. We haven't had Marcus on the show. We've been trying to get him now for about a year. We're going to do a live show with Marcus at the Crystal Ballroom on February 9th in Boston. All the proceeds will benefit Marcus's foundation, the Young Game Changer Foundation, which does a lot of amazing things in communities around the country. The mission of Marcus's foundation is to serve as a source of guidance, motivation, encouragement, and empowerment for inner city student athletes to be game changers on and off the court or field. We're really excited to be doing this show. I know, Tommy, you've been talking with his team lately. Marcus is really excited to do it as well.
Yeah, Marcus is really hyped to do it. We were, I think, going to do a live show in Boston regardless, but this was kind of Marcus's idea to do it with a crowd. I think he has such a unique connection with the Celtic fan base, having been there for so long. And so it's like all the more exciting, I feel like, for us when there's somebody who wants to do it with our fans and wants to do it with, a group of people and not just do it in a quiet room.
Exactly. It'll be fun. Unfortunately, we have to officially cancel our South Florida show, which was going to be at the Broward Center in Fort Lauderdale. We are canceling that show. If you purchase tickets for that show, you will get a full refund. The venue will be reaching out to you via email or however you put your contact info when you bought the tickets, and you will get a full refund. Episode 95, Kevin Love. This was a good catch-up with him because I feel like when we had him on previously in an Eat, Pray, Dunk segment in the middle of last season. They were really struggling. We had him on in the off season. I feel like Kevin's in such a good place right now, having fun on this Cavs team.
Yeah, he says it on the show that he's almost never been happier as an NBA player than he is this year, but he's so kind of fulfilled in his role right now, and they're rolling. I mean, we're going to get into it with him, but I don't think anybody expected them to be in the position they are now, and they're having guys step up across the board, and he's just happy. And it's fun he's a good friend of ours. We spend a lot of time with him, and it's fun. It's fun to see him like this from a basketball setting because, this better than anybody. It's like when you're miserable playing, it wears on you in every part of your life.
Yeah, and look, he says it, and I've said this a million times, and I'm sure we've had other guests on the show say this, but winning is a cure-all in professional sports. And when you are losing, all the little things that can be stressors or aggravators or points of frustration, those things build up much easier. It's sort of like plaque on the back of your teeth. You're going to get it regardless. But if you're brushing your teeth and you're rinsing your mouth, it takes a little bit longer for that plaque to build up. In this analogy, of course, Tommy, winning is brushing your teeth and mouthwash.
Yes. Well, what do you think? We're going to get into this with him, but I think we should talk about the Cavs a little bit because we haven't spent a lot of time on them this year, nor have a lot of other, sort of mainstream media outlets. But what are your initial thoughts on them, in mid-January? Because this is a team that has overachieved by every single metric you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, we talk about net rating and point differential quite a bit on the show. And generally speaking, the best teams, of course, have the highest net ratings and point differentials. The Cavs, as of today, have the highest point differential and net rating in the Eastern Conference, which is kind of crazy because they're sitting in sixth place. But the East is so bottled up at the top. They're only 2.5 games out of first place. And they've got to look. I don't know. And again, I've said this a bunch. I don't know that they're a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference when we look at playoffs, but there's certainly the ability to make some noise in the playoffs. Kevin gave one of his best answers of this entire conversation when I asked him about what this Cavs team ceiling is. I was actually, Tommy, I was fooling around with the FanDuel app earlier today, and I love the Cavs. I know they lost last night in Chicago. I love their team. I love Jared Allen. I love Darius Garland. They're plus 700 to win the Central Division. They're plus 3,300 to win the Eastern Conference. $100 bet nets out $3,300 if they end up winning the Eastern Conference, which I think is that's great odds.
Well, they're plus 6,000 on FanDuel to win the finals. They're in the same places as Boston and Atlanta. And we get into this, specifically with Kevin, but they're such a uniquely built team.
Yes.
And when you have a rookie like Evan Mobley, who I would argue is probably the front runner for Rookie of the Year right now, or definitely in that conversation, who we don't even know what he's going to look like in 3 months.
Yeah.
He could get so much better in 3 months. Yeah. I'm not saying that people need to be talking about the Cavs being a finals team or anything like that, or even winning a playoff series, but they just have a lot of upside.
Yeah. I was watching the game last night, and Kevin talks about their zone a bit, but I love the length of that zone. They play basically a 1-2-2, which isn't particularly common in the NBA. You see a lot of like a 2-3 hybrid, but they play a 1-2-2. They put Evan Mobley at the top, and then they sort of use his length as the gate to the whole thing. They put Lauri Markkanen, Jared Allen on the back line. They have Isaac Okoro and Darius Garland at the elbows. And they had this really interesting rotation, and their whole thing is like let's funnel guys to our three bigs. Let's make them the high frequency contesters of our defense. They're just built really well defensively, and that echoes in their top 5 defense. I do think, Tommy. I tweeted about this last week. I do think there's a good chance we're headed for a finals rematch. I know people probably don't want to hear that, but I think we are.
Why do you think that right now?
Assuming teams are fully healthy. I know there's a lot of what ifs out there, specifically with Golden State and Draymond, of course, and the severity of this back injury, which is affecting his calf. Phoenix is the only team in the league with a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense. They've had a bunch of disruptions in their lineup. I said this the other day on SportsCenter. In their first 43 games, the combo of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton had only played in 23 of those 43 games together, and they're still 34-9. So they have the depth. Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Chris, of course. They have really smart defenders. Mikal obviously is a great individual defender, and they have a great coach whose attention to detail in a playoff series, again, this is all advantages in their favor. And going, I said this at the very beginning of the season, they have 2 of the best closers in the game in Chris Paul and Devin Booker. I don't think you like my Milwaukee take. Is that an issue?
I don't. It's not an issue, but I don't know what has happened in the last month that makes you think that would make you this confident in Milwaukee. Being, not to say that they're not going to make the finals, they are arguably the best player in the world. So anytime you have that, you're going to be in the conversation. But I think a lot of things fell in their favor last year, obviously with the health of their opponents. And I don't think you can count on that again happening this year. And I think, Brook is scheduled to come back, but that's a tricky injury. And that's a very key piece. They don't get to the finals last year without him if he's not playing. And so I think even with Golden State, I'm more confident in the Phoenix pick than the Milwaukee pick, I would say.
That's fair. They're 16-3 when Drew, Chris, and Giannis play. Giannis, to me, is probably not getting talked about enough as an MVP. He's having as good of a season as he had when he won back-to-back MVPs. He's been phenomenal defensively as well. I really like their team in a playoff series. There's a little bit of corporate knowledge that gets passed down when you make a run like that. The problem with, and I agree with you, of course, when we talk about the Eastern Conference being a little bit deeper, and the team right now. By the way, what is Philly's odds right now? Because the team right now that feels to me like the dark horse in the East is the Philadelphia 76ers. And I know Joel Embiid has not made a conference finals, and they bowed out. They lost to the Hawks last year. I know all that stuff.
Do you really think this? I don't.
You don't think they're a sleeper?
No. Unless
you think that you think they're a favorite?
No, I don't think. I think there's a massive elephant in the room, and if that elephant does not get moved, I don't think Joel is on another planet. You could make the legitimate argument Joel is the best player in the world right now, but I don't think any of their depth has put them in a position where you could say they are in the same conversation as Milwaukee, Brooklyn, even Miami. I don't think they're on the same level as Miami.
$100 bet on FanDuel nets you $1,000 plus 1,000 odds on Philly to make the finals. I'm gonna tell you why, Tommy. Daryl Morey is now saying, with the way Joel is playing and has elevated us to basically contender status, we'd be doing a disservice. I'm paraphrasing here. We'd be doing a disservice to not look at trades for Ben Simmons. There's, I think, more willingness now to trade him for a non-top 25, non-top 30 player and get a couple good players back and some picks. To me, that's the smart choice. I don't know how you can justify wasting this year of Joel's prime.
I agree.
When things across the league feel fairly wide open.
I agree. I think but I just don't see any evidence that this trade is going to happen. When the trade happens, I think this is a totally different conversation. I think we can hop on 30 minutes after the trade is officially signed at the NBA, and I will probably be agreeing with your take because with Joel in this current state, they should be in the conversation to be in the finals. There's nobody that can defend him in either conference.
We'll do another FanDuel segment when this trade does happen, Tommy, and we'll see what those finals odds are.
Did you pull their finals right now? They're plus 2,100. They're still behind the Lakers
to win it all. You're saying
win it all. The Bulls are 2,200. Yeah. So here's a team that is playing great right now. That still feels like a good deal. Is Dallas is plus 4,600.
I thought you were going to say the Miami Heat, and I was going to tell you we've talked enough.
No,
about
but
the Heat
the Heat are plus 1,600. The Heat are actually, that feels like a pretty fair placement considering all the different moving parts that they have. Dallas is closer to Boston and Atlanta right now in terms of the public perception of them, and it feels like defensively they've definitely taken a jump.
Well, since Luka got back, I think they're the number one defense in the league. They're playing great. They're winning. To me, they're still a piece away. They're a team to watch around the trade deadline. Mark's aggressive. Again, it goes back to this. You've got a generational talent in Luka Doncic. You've got a generational talent in Joel Embiid. These guys are capable right now. Whereas some young players, and I'm not going to name the young players, but there's some young players. And by the way, this is not a shot at John Morant. I'm not saying John Morant. John Morant is capable of being the number one guy on a championship team. It's not John Morant. But there are some young players around the league who get a lot of hype that I don't think are capable right now in their career of being the number one guy on a championship level team. Luka is that. Joel is that. Take advantage of that year. There's a window right now. Take advantage. Be aggressive.
I have one question before we go to the convo with Kevin. This gets back to the Milwaukee conversation. Is there a guy like PJ last year? Is there a guy who's a vet who you feel like either through a buyout or a trade, not based on like things you know are going to happen or anything like that, but you feel like can be added to one of these teams and can make a difference? Because that's why it's so tough to really say these things definitively now. Is PJ made a massive difference for them last year, and I think that happened in March or something like that.
Right. I think his trade may have happened pre-deadline. I think it happened a few weeks before. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. It just felt like maybe it happened a few weeks before. But what I was going to say was there's one guy in particular that always comes to mind, and it's Eric Gordon, who despite some dysfunction, despite some losing, has been an absolute pro this year in Houston. His numbers are good. His efficiency numbers are good. We know he can guard. We know he can space the floor. We know he can be a tertiary or a secondary option on offense. That's what championship level teams are looking for at the deadline. And Houston's not going anywhere. So he's the guy that. Hey, look, trade deadlines rarely swing things in favor of a championship. It happens, but you're really looking you're not looking for foundational building blocks necessarily. You're looking for those ancillary pieces that are going to sort of get you over the hump. I think Eric Gordon is the guy. If I'm a team, if I'm the Phoenix Suns, if I'm the Bucks missing,
and he's done it.
PJ from last year.
We've seen him do it.
He's done it in the
over
playoffs.
and over again in the playoffs.
Exactly. Eric Gordon's the guy. All right, we have an awesome combo with Kevin. Return of the draft. I absolutely crushed Tommy and Kevin in this draft. Let's get to our conversation with our friend Kevin Love.